There is a church by us. They're really good. They do outreach and things like that. They're a give back church, which a church should be at all times. But one of my relatives used to go there for a little bit, and then they switched churches. The family has a reputation of switching churches. The one that I grew up in was really good, but then they I don't remember what happened actually. I don't know why we stopped going there, or why my relatives stopped going there at all. So anyways, one of my family members was schizophrenic. This was many moons ago, decades ago. And they would walk around the town. It's just not embarrassing to me. In my teens, I was a little bit embarrassed, but I think I've told you all, I learned not to judge people when I was really young, because I was, I grew up differently. What the hell is that? So anyways, my relative was going to the church, and she went outside after. That's the problem with churches, right? It's fine to sit for the sermon and listen to the word and all that, but then they want to get you involved in the social part of it. And sometimes people are more interested in having a good standing in the church than they are having a relationship with Jesus, right? So sometimes it's just for show. They're not really religious per se. They're just using the church as a crutch to maintain a good reputation. So she went outside after, and everyone congregates around the outside of the church, and they talk and have a little social time or whatever. The church I grew up in, we used to have a tea time in the basement where you could go and have like cookies or little sandwiches depending on what was brought in, and have, whatever, have a little talk, have a little social time. Anyway, she's outside and she's talking, and she's not a very social butterfly. Doesn't really read social cues. Like, had a hard time sort of keeping friendships her whole life. And she's talking, and the preacher comes up, or the pastor I should say, and he says, yeah, they're talking about what's going on in the community, whatever, and they're like, yeah, and there's that guy that walks around barefooted with and he looks like a real, basically looks like a real creepy dude, and our community needs to watch out for him. The whole 9 yards. Well, that was her son they were talking about. I'm just gonna stop here and do my rest of my video. That was her son. And he used to literally walk around the streets. He literally looked like Jesus. Okay? Some would say Charles Manson, whatever. But he literally looked like Jesus, walking around the streets barefoot. And he'd just go into the coffee shops. He wouldn't harm anyone. He'd just go in the coffee shops and chain smoke. Because there was nowhere else to go until he got entered into a program and got the proper help he needed, the whole thing, right? But before that, he just walked the streets and sat in coffee shops, chain smoking. So she's like, I wanted to speak up and say, that's my son, but I was embarrassed. And I said, well, you should have never been embarrassed of your kid. Like, you never be, even though he's a grown-ass man, you should never be embarrassed of your own flesh and blood. But she said, I just felt like the way they were talking about him was like he wasn't even a human being. He's a burden, and he needed to get rid of, and he had never done anything inappropriate on the street, or he wasn't a nuisance because he had a place to live. He wasn't even unhoused. It's not like he was sleeping on the street or something, or in someone's doorway. He had a house to live in. He just chose to walk because that's, he had been a working man who had had a breakdown and whatever. So she obviously didn't say anything. She went home and she stopped going to that church, and she changed it out for another one where she actually felt very comfortable at. So what is the meaning of my story? I don't know. I'm just telling you a story because I'm telling it. But be choosy and don't always, the church is just holding a religion, a concept of religion. And that's why it's important to have a one-on-one relationship with Jesus. Talk to you later. Bye.